Good afternoon, viewers. This is Hope Channel Zambia media that changes lives. Thank you so much for joining us today on Hope Live. Hope Live comes to you every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, live on Hope Channel Zambia Top Star, as well as on our Facebook page. Now, you are aware the past week there has been a lot of buzz over the change of the kwacha notes, and the Bank of Zambia recently announced the change of the notes and also the introduction of two notes, and there has been a lot of talk, fuzz from different kind of people, economists and just lay people like you and I, and there's been a lot of mixed feelings over the change or the introduction of the new money. So the Bank of Zambia announced the plans to redesign the kwacha notes, not to change the currency, but just to design the kwacha notes. And it has sparked a lot of interest and debate amongst economists, policymakers, and members of the general public. As an expert in economics, today our guest, Dr. O'Brien Ndlovu, is going to help us understand further the changes that the Bank of Zambia has made. Does it have any impact on the economy of Zambia, inflation, as much as you may need to understand most of those things? So we are going to discuss, our discussion will delve into various aspects of the design notes, including the potential effects, like I said earlier, on inflation, interest rates, and foreign investment. We'll also explore the potential risks and challenges associated with the redesigned kwacha notes and how they might impact Zambia's reputation and credibility in the international financial community. We'd also love to hear from you, as usual, our dearest viewers. So you can also join us as we examine the intricacies of the redesigned Zambian kwacha notes and their potential impact on the country's economy and the financial sector. So to participate, you can send your message, your concern, to 0976 151517. You can WhatsApp us, and also you can message us on Facebook. We are live. You can send your comments, and we'll be able to share your thoughts with you on air today. My name is Mwene Mianga, your host for Hope Life today. But yesterday, the Minister of Media and Information, Mr. Cornelius Mwetwa, had a press briefing, and he mentioned some of the reasons as into why the Bank of Zambia decided to redesign the banknotes as well as to introduce new denominations to the family. And so we're going to play a short clip just to have a recap of what the minister said yesterday as we delve deep into this conversation. Stay tuned.
Government position is that it was necessary,
you can share
on
now.
the advice of experts at the central bank and the financial sector, that we had to perform a change of our banking notes, not the currency itself, but banking notes. The following are some of the reasons why that was important. Number one, to enhance security features of our kwacha. It was a well-established fact that due to rise in technological advancements, even technology to counterfeit the kwacha is improving, and therefore there was an increased incidence of counterfeiting our money to such an extent that by the time it is deemed that this is counterfeit money, it has already gone into circulation, and sometimes those banknotes will remain in circulation representing a false economic tender. That was a very economically based rationale. That's reason number one. Reason number two, there was a concern from members of the public about the longevity of those banking notes in terms of the texture and its lifespan. Today, if you look at a 5 kwacha and 2 kwacha especially, most of those denominations, they waste easily, meaning they deteriorate or become, you know, they lose the proper, you know, texture. The other reason was to ensure that our colleagues, the differently abled, are able to distinguish the difference between 2 kwacha, 5 kwacha, 10 kwacha, 50 kwacha, 100 kwacha, 200 and 500. Because now the new notes are made different in font, in size. So you are now able to tell, for the colleagues who are differently able, say, oh, now I'm handling a 5 kwacha, now I'm handling a 20 kwacha, now I'm handling a 50 kwacha. We would like to debunk this notion that a higher denomination represents a collapsed economy, because it's not backed by any economic theory or practicality. The currency, which is the value in the banknote, derives from the state of the economy and not the denomination represented.
Well, that was Minister of Information and Media Cornelius Mwetwa yesterday during a press briefing in Lusaka, where he highlighted government's position on the reason why the Bank of Zambia, the central bank, has decided to redesign the notes and also add to the family new denominations. So we'd also love to hear from you. What are your thoughts? Do you think it's a step in the right direction? Do you think it's got some implications on the economy of Zambia, maybe on investor confidence? Whatever your thoughts may be on the issue of changing, or rather redesigning the banknotes, would love to hear from you. But today, I'm joined by Dr. O'Brien Ndlovu, an economist who's going to take us step by step to help us understand from an economist point of view why it was necessary, or why did the Bank of Zambia decide to change the notes and redesign them. Doctor, welcome to the show today.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon to all those that are following us. It's a pleasure joining you in discussing such a matter. I understand that whenever there's change, there's always dust that comes with such a change, and so there could be a lot of jitteriness, a lot of unease that may actually come in the public, and it's very important that we discuss these issues, make clarifications where it is necessary. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you so much, Doc. And maybe just to begin, you've mentioned something profound already, that whenever there is change, there's a lot of dust that needs to be settled, because people begin to, others may not accept the change for some reasons, others are hesitant, others are skeptical, and we are glad that you are here, because we are sure that by the end of this conversation, at least people who have a position, they will understand things better from someone who's got the experience. So what are your initial thoughts, rather, on the Bank of Zambia's decision to redesign the kwacha notes?
Well, you see, when we're looking at this whole matter, I think there are two things that we actually needed to separate, because when the announcement came, it basically combined the two items. The first one is the redesigning of the currency, basically changing from the old pictures to the new ones that, from what we've heard from the minister, these are coming with enhanced security features, features that would also enable our colleagues that may be differently enabled to also be able to distinguish between the different currencies. So that is one matter. The second one is actually the introduction of the high-value notes, and this is referring to the 200 and the 500 that were not there in the old family. So as we are discussing this, obviously very important that people distinguish the introduction of a family of new notes that are coming with enhanced features versus the introduction of the high value notes. And in terms of how we are supposed to look at it, there could actually be differences. So when you're looking at the introduction of a new family of notes, I mean, Zambia is not the only country that is actually doing this, nor is it actually the first time that the country is actually changing these notes. Now, to just make it very simple, even in the IT industry, I'm glad now that almost everyone now has a phone,
Yeah, sure.
which has some security features, in the form of, could be a password, it could be a PIN. Now, one of the common advice that we actually get in these pins is that you design a PIN of your own so that nobody else should be able to access your phone without your consent. But at the same time, you can't have a PIN that will be there forever, because at some point, somebody else will have actually managed to configure, to know your PIN, and so that would then allow them to access your phone without your consent. So similarly, the making of currency in the country is a preserve of the government through the central bank. And you know that our world is now becoming more and more sophisticated. The technology is advancing, and the advancement of technology, the obvious part of it is that now you have a possibility of counterfeit.
Sure.
Now, counterfeit, you only deal with the counterfeit by keeping on changing your PIN. You should have a PIN for this month, you change the PIN for the other time, so that even the one that is trying to match your PIN, they should basically be remaining behind. So in the same way, these currencies, when they're in the circulation for a much longer period, that actually gives room to those that may actually decide to do counterfeits. And this is a point that the minister also mentions. Secondly, when you are changing the currencies, obviously an advancement even in terms of the security features, so you're basically improving it. So if you compare, for instance, the notes that we were having during the Kaunda era versus the notes that we are having now, the fact that technology has changed, the equipment that handles cash is also changing. So it requires then that even the currency must be modified in order to suit with the current state of technology, and also obviously to deal with the security issues. The other point which now relates to the issues of introducing the higher value notes. Now, obviously, when you are discussing that issue, people think that, oh, there's a 500 that is coming. I have seen a lot of comment on Facebook where people are carrying someone on a stretcher, and the reason they're actually being carried on a stretcher is that, oh, because they dropped a 500 kwacha note somewhere.
Okay.
So I mean, that is the fun part of it, but I mean, that is neither here nor there, because the whole issue really is that if you look at when the 100 kwacha note was introduced, I think it was introduced somewhere in the 2013, if I am not mistaken.
Yeah.
At the time the note actually came into circulation, the amount of goods and services that it was able to buy. For instance, I think at that time, one was actually able to buy a bag of maize, a bag of meal from the 100 kwacha. But at the moment, I think you need the 3 or 4 of them to actually buy a bag of meal. And so it means when you are dealing with these higher value transactions, it means now we are going towards carrying a briefcase, because the money that you actually need to go and buy a cow can't fit in the pocket anymore, or the pocket will actually be bulging and exposing you to potential harm and danger. And so it's always necessary that the currency is kept at pace with the current state of the technology, the level of development that we have actually reached, and also the nature of transactions that we are having in circulation. And by looking at that, obviously we'll be getting into what is the reason why we're actually having money, what is the role of money, and how should money actually play that role. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doc. So owing to the many points that you've actually raised, do you think this must be an ongoing thing? Should the government of Zambia, or maybe the central bank, have a specific period in which maybe money could be changed in order to move with the times and technology?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. Now, there are a number of factors that actually go into deciding whether to introduce a higher value notes. And so it's not something that you would actually fix that we need to be doing this every 10 years or every 5 years.
Okay.
So one of the key factors actually that goes into determining whether you actually need the higher value notes or not is you are looking at the value of transactions, the common transactions that people are actually engaged in. So just some years back, like I mentioned, when the 100 kwacha note was being introduced,
sure.
Mirimi was less than 100 kwacha. a bag of maize was less than 100 kwacha. You could buy, for example, a cow for just a few notes. But then over time, as the prices are going upwards, and as you know, prices are never constant. So today it will be the price of mealie meal that is going up. Tomorrow it will be the price of some other commodity that is going up. And so on average, we see that these prices are actually going up on almost like a continuous basis. But then should we be introducing higher value notes on a daily basis, on a yearly basis? Certainly not, because at the end of the day, again, you need some time for people to actually get used to these notes. And obviously, when the change comes, it also comes with some aspects of inconvenience, like I mentioned. There's also a cost that is also involved. So it's not something that you can actually be doing regularly, but the central bank has to keep monitoring these trends and say, oh, do we actually need this now or not? And like I mentioned, there are two things that we've got to separate here. It's a new family of banknotes, and then the other one is basically dealing with a higher value notes. And the reasons are actually different for both. It's just that sometimes the central bank may actually just take advantage that whenever you're changing a new family, you better also deal with the other one. So you remember that when the 100 kwacha was introduced, it was the time when we were doing the rebasing. When we were dropping the 3 zeros, that was basically a new family of banknotes, and then you take advantage and introduce the other ones also.
Okay, very interesting. Now, talking of just an ordinary Zambian, how do you think the redesigning of these notes will impact or an average Zambian or affect them in any way?
So the redesigning, I mean, the 50 kwacha looks bluish, the 100 kwacha looks, is it some grayish or I'm not very good with the colors. And so when these notes are redesigned, the 100 kwacha will remain a 100 kwacha. The 50 kwacha will remain a 50 kwacha. And so there's virtually no change in the value of this money. The only change will basically be, oh, this one, I've heard that, no, in the other one, the ego was sitting on a twig or a branch. Then this time around, the ego is now in a flying mode. So those are the only changes. So in terms of the value, from an economics point of view, financial point of view, there is no value. And of course, the other advantage now is that, you know, when you go on an ATM, probably this is something that has not come in, ATMs are designed or configured to dispense a certain amount of notes. So an ATM is actually, it's not counting the actual currency, actual value, but it is counting the number of papers that it is dispensing. So when you are having 100 kwacha as the highest note, and then given that an ATM you can only dispense a maximum of 40 notes, that means the maximum you can actually withdraw from an ATM becomes 40 times the highest note of 100 kwacha. That would basically be giving you about 4,000. So by having a higher value notes, that means now the ATM that is still dispensing 40 notes will now be able to give you a much higher value. So for instance, if you are withdrawing a 10,000 kwacha, currently for many ATMs, you've actually got to do that many times. And you know, each time you actually make that withdrawal, there is a cost that is involved. You tend to see that cost, I mean, especially when you're poor, because I mean, 15 kwacha deducted from account is a significant deduction, because that is actually enough to get you from town to somewhere.
So looking at the potential drawbacks, are there any potential drawbacks for individuals or benefits actually of redesigning the current currency?
So at an individual level, it's very difficult to actually see any drawback. Because basically there doesn't exist any, but like I mentioned, the change is always very difficult to accept, and so there's room that sometimes psychologically people may think, oh, this new money is coming with this added value. But like I mentioned, a 50 kwacha new and old will be buying the same things. A 100 kwacha new and old will be buying the same things. A new 200 kwacha will basically be equivalent to 2 100 kwachas. And so even when you are making a transaction, it's basically receiving, either you receive 1 200 kwacha note or you receive 2 100 kwacha notes. And so the amount of value that you have to give away or you have to receive remains the same at an individual level. And so there's basically no need for people to get agitated, to worry, because this money is actually meant to ease the way we actually make these transactions. Now, you know, to just buttress my point, let's look at why we actually have money in circulation and what sort of note we should actually be having in an economy. So can we just imagine for a moment that the economy only had 10 kwacha notes or 5 kwacha notes, this is lower value notes. So the goodness with that is that you would be able to pay for your bus fare from town to Karingaringa, to Mtendere, to Kamanga and all that. But then if you have to go and buy a bag of milk, it's very difficult with 10 kwachas because now it means you have to carry a lot of them. Yeah. If you need to go and buy a plot, if you need to go and buy something that is of a higher value, it's very difficult because now it means you actually have to carry that money in a bag or in a wheelbarrow like we've seen in other countries. So that would be the challenge that would come in. Then the opposite side is what would happen if we only had 100 kwacha notes only in the economy. So obviously the advantage is that it's very easy to engage in these higher value transactions. Okay. You would easily buy a bag of milk because you just need 10 of them. But then how would children buy jiggies and all these snacks? Because these are prices, for example, 1 kwacha, 10 kwacha. So it means having a higher value denominations only, it becomes very difficult because they become indivisible. They can't be divided into smaller notes. Okay. So it means it's very important to have the whole family of notes so that you basically cater for transactions that have lower values, such as a child that is buying jiggies and snacks, versus a transaction that have higher value, like one that is actually buying a plot or buying some asset of some sort, or even a vehicle. Now, of course, people may argue that the government should actually be transitioning towards these digital platforms. Yeah. Yes, that is the direction that everybody, the whole globe is actually moving, but then we need to realize that there's always a lag. So things may not obviously move at a pace that we expect. We still have the vast majority of our economy is actually rural-based. And so these swiping facilities are not yet in existence. And so people have to deal with currency. Sure. So it means the government and the central bank have a responsibility to provide the notes that actually make these transactions more efficient. That people must be able to find the notes that are suitable for different kinds of transactions. For buying jiggies, for buying a car, there must be different notes that we actually are using.
Now, Doc, there has been a lot of talk on the media spaces, on social media. We've seen politicians and economists, financial people. They have different thoughts on this issue of redesigning or changing the banknotes, especially in regards to inflation, interest rates, and generally affecting the whole economy. Do you think the change or the redesigning of these new notes will affect the economy, inflation, as well as exchange rates? How do you think that is going to change or affect it?
So from all angles that I can actually look at it, like I mentioned, it's very difficult to actually see how that would actually affect that, because the amount of money that will be in circulation will remain the same. Okay. So when the 500 is coming into circulation, it is replacing the 5 100 kwacha notes, or it will be the 10 50 kwacha notes, so that the amount of value that is in circulation remains the same, so it will not be affected by such a change. So let me just give an example of, you know that over time, one tends to gain weight, because I mean, until you reach a certain point where weight becomes the same. And so as you are gaining weight, one of the things that you have to adjust is the belt, the waist belt. And so when you gain weight, it means you need a belt that is much longer for it to be able to go around the waist. Sure. But then the question that you would ask now is that if I buy a new belt that is longer, does that belt cause me to gain more weight? Obviously not, sure. Because I mean the belt is not nutritious for it to be able to contribute to my gaining weight. Definitely. But then I may need a new belt because I have gained weight. Definitely. So it means in that sense we need to look at which one is actually causing the other. So we need the higher value notes because we've had a long period of having higher levels of inflation, such that our price levels have actually gone up. So over time, I have been gaining weight. And because I've been gaining weight, the belt that I have maybe is now causing me discomfort because it's now too short for my body. Definitely. And so I have to buy a new one. But when I'm buying a new one, it does not in any way change my weight. So similarly, you need the higher value notes because the value of transaction that now people are engaged in over time, it's actually a transaction,
Sure.
shopping for groceries and all that. But then over time, because you know that our inflation has actually, I think currently is somewhere around 15%, way above the 10%. And so it means the prices have actually been increasing. And the price, when prices are increasing, it means the same transactions that we were doing then, now we have got to do them with higher value notes because now we are dealing with much bigger values. And so it's just natural that even the notes themselves must also change. And like I said, this is not the first time that this is activities actually being done. It's been done many times.
Sure.
Like I mentioned, the 100 kwacha was introduced, I think, just around 2013 or so. The 50 kwacha was not there when I was born. The current, even the 20 kwacha were not there. So remember, so these things will keep on increasing, and as the value of transactions are going up, the currency that is in circulation also has to match in order to ensure that the concept of making transaction is not so inconveniencing. You are not forcing people to be carrying stacks and stacks of currency notes. That is, from the individual person, there will be no change. There will be no value because, I mean, if you are getting 100 kwacha, it's either you get the same 100 kwacha old or new. If you are getting a 500 kwacha, you would have either one note 500 or the 500 kwacha notes. And in terms of their purchasing power, it will remain the same. From the government and the central bank side, perhaps there's actually some reduction in the cost because remember, money is actually paper.
Sure.
And so when you are printing the paper, the cost of the actual printing may not be related to the actual value of the note. So in other words, simply put is that the cost of printing a 100 kwacha note is the same as the cost of printing a 2 kwacha note.
Sure.
Just experiment with photocopying. If you want to photocopy those notes, which is illegal anyway, the cost that you are going to pay will be 1 kwacha per A4 paper if you are to do that. So it will be irrespective of the value of that note. So it means when we are maintaining these low value notes, it means the government is forced to be printing more of those notes. But when you are having higher value notes, it means you are actually reducing the amount of notes that the government has to print. A simple example is that if, for example, the economy needed to have a 1,000 amount of value or value of money, if you are maintaining the 100 kwacha, it means you've got to print 10 notes. But if you are dealing with a 500 kwacha, you are only printing the 2 notes. And so you see how the cost of printing the money is actually changing. That you could also relate it with the cost of carrying the money. So if I need to carry 10,000 at a moment, 10,000 divided by 100, it means I need 100 notes. So if you put 100 notes together, they will probably not fit in the pocket.
Bunch, definitely.
But the 10,000 kwacha divided by the 500 kwacha notes, it's a much lower number that actually becomes manageable. And so how we are actually going to be having these notes will depend on what one is engaged in, and perhaps what may be worrying to people. People think that there will come a time when the government will actually maybe bring a ZNS track and then they will be issuing these notes. Wow, such a thing will never happen. Sure. So the way these notes are coming in, I mean, instead of getting paid in 100 kwacha notes, if you are getting a salary of say 1,000 kwacha, they give you 10 of them, or they give you 2 of them. And then as you engage in your first transaction, that money is ultimately broken down into the smaller notes. But then it becomes manageable, it becomes easy to handle, because the fewer papers are actually giving you a much higher value. The other one, of course, like I mentioned, the change is also, there's a cost that comes with change. So a lot of machines have got to be configured because we have these 2 new notes that are coming in, and so they have to be included in the configuration of those machines. But then that does not affect me as an individual. So a member of the public is not concerned how an ATM is actually dispensing the money. So for me, my concern is that if I punch 500 kwacha, does the machine give me 500? Whether that 500 comes in 50 kwacha notes or 100 kwacha notes or in a single 500 kwacha note, that is immaterial, because I mean, money is just money. So however it comes in small notes or in larger notes.
Well, Thank you so much, Doc. And coming to think of foreign investment and trade, does the new redesigned banknotes have any impact on foreign investment and trade?
So the issue of having any impact on trade, maybe let's look at it from the aspect of foreigners having confidence in our money. So, you know, the confidence that you would have in your money is an assurance that this money is not counterfeit, that whenever you touch this money, it is the original money, because everyone, especially a visitor, a person that is coming into the country, a person that is not yet conversant with the currency, the first thing they get worried of is the money that I'm actually getting, especially when you're getting it from an individual. You want to ask yourself, is this the original note, or I am likely to find myself having possession of counterfeit note? So it means when the government is actually improving the features of these notes, it's also speaking to the confidence that the outside will also be having in handling our currency. That means you're basically getting rid of any possibility of having counterfeit. Because remember, when you're traveling into another country, even just going into Malawi and all that, I am not very conversant with Malawi notes. So the moment I arrive there, whether through Chipata or through some other port, and then I have to get the notes from there, I am worried that the person that is giving me, are they giving me the original notes, or are they giving me something that is fake? So when the government has done its homework, and they're having these very authentic with the notes with very secure features, then I will not be worried, because I know that there can never be a counterfeit Malawian kwacha, because the government has done its part by ensuring that they have these features that ensure that it's not an easy process for one to actually get a counterfeit notes. So it means from that angle, we could actually say, by making that improvement, government could also sending a clear signal to the outsider that no, the kwacha is very safe, that you will not get into any possibility of having a fake one, kwacha note.
Okay. And talking of transition, is the transition going to be a seamless one, or it's going to be a very difficult one? How will the Bank of Zambia, the central bank, make sure that there's a smooth transition of using the old notes to getting into the new notes?
Now, so to answer that question, and I know since 2013 is not very far in the history, I would want people to relate to what actually happened when central bank dropped those 3 zeros from the 50,000 kwacha note to a 50 kwacha note. So that was done in 2013, and many would actually remember that the old notes, like, they just vanished in thin air. Like, you never noticed when those notes are actually disappeared. And there was no announcement that, oh, now from this day on, you can only transact in this note and not the other one. So the point I'm trying to bring home is that the change from the old to the new is usually very seamless. People not even realize it. And then there's also usually a very long grace period. So we are told now that this new currency is coming. Is it the end of March? And then from that end of March, I think from what I have heard, when the minister was speaking in Parliament, he actually mentioned that the grace period is actually likely to be 12 months or even more. So that means from end of March up to the other March, we will be having these notes side by side. So when you are buying, the change can either be given in the new notes or in the old notes. But then how the old currency is actually withdrawn is that whenever you make a deposit in the bank, for instance, then that currency goes for good. And what the bank will be giving in exchange will actually be new notes. So that over time, these old notes will just disappear without people actually realizing. So it means for an ordinary person in the public, that is not something that we should actually be concerned with. So the money that you are having, as long as whether it's old or not, new is something that is immaterial. Because even when you are buying, nobody will refuse that, no, now because we are dealing with the new currency, then the old one, I can't accept it. It continues to be legal tender. It continues to be in use for a much longer period, because the 1 year is quite a long period. And by the end of that year, all the money, because most of these monies, you know, is actually passing through the banking system. So whenever it enters into a bank, then it doesn't actually come out. What comes out is a new currency. When you go to withdraw from an ATM, the ATM will issue out new notes. Then with the odd notes, every time you buy, for example, you go to purchase from these chain stores.
Yeah.
When you give them your odd note, the change will come in the new notes.
New notes.
Then when they deposit those odd notes, means they are going for good. When you go to church, whichever church, I mean, whenever you put offering, I know that most of the churches now bank their offerings. So it means when I'm taking my offering, I can take it either in the new or odd note. And then the bank, the church will take that money to the bank. When the church is making a withdrawal for whatever transaction, they'll be getting new notes. So over time, you will just find that these old notes will just keep on disappearing as the new notes are actually coming in. And then the whole process will actually be seamless. You will not even realize at what point you are no longer having these old notes and you're only having the new notes. Just like that, what happened in 2013. I don't think anybody would actually come on there and say, no. I think in 2013 I was duped because of this, or somebody refused to accept this money because I was having this money and all that. That will not happen. Of course, in the 2013, because we were dealing with the rebasing where we are dropping the 3 zeros, I know in the vocabulary, the 1,000 still remained. People say, no, I want a 50,000, even when they mean a 50 kwacha.
Sure.
So we dealt with that situation. That meant a change from thousands to without 1,000. Now we are simply dealing with a redesigned note.
Sure.
So the same 50 kwacha, the same new 50 kwacha note.
Sure. Well, I think you've gotten to understand some of the things that we are discussing. And I remember, Doc, in 12, 13, that time, I was a very small boy, and I went to the shop I went with the odd notes to buy some stuff, and I was given coins. I was very excited, receiving those new notes, and I feel it's going to be a very seamless transition, like you have mentioned. You are watching Hope Live, and we are discussing, and we are understanding the redesigned new notes and the implications that they may have on individuals as well as the Zambian economy. Just now, we are going to take a short break. Stay tuned.
Government position is that it was necessary, on the advice of experts at the central bank and the financial sector, that we had to perform a change of our banking notes, not the currency itself, but banking notes. The following are some of the reasons why that was important. Number one, to enhance security features of our kwacha. It was a well-established fact that due to rise in technological advancements, even technology to counterfeit the kwacha is improving, and therefore there was an increased incidence of counterfeiting our money, to such an extent that by the time it is deemed that this is counterfeit money, it has already gone into circulation. And sometimes those banknotes will remain in circulation, representing a false economic tender. That was a very economically based rationale. That's reason number one. Reason number two, there was a concern from members of the public about the longevity of those banking notes in terms of the texture and its lifespan. Today, if you look at a 5 kwacha and 2 kwacha especially, most of those denominations, they waste easily, meaning they deteriorate or become, they lose the proper, texture. The other reason was to ensure that our colleagues, the differently abled, are able to distinguish the difference between 2 kwacha, 5 kwacha, 10 kwacha, 50 kwacha, 100 kwacha, 200 and 500. Because now the new notes are made different in font, in size. So you are now able to tell for the colleagues who are different labels, say, oh, now I'm handling a 5 kwacha, now I'm handling a 20 kwacha, now I'm handling a 50 kwacha. We would like to debunk this notion that a higher denomination represents a collapsed economy, because it's not backed by any economic theory or practicality. The currency, which is the value in the banknote, derives from the state of the economy and not the denomination represented on a particular banknote.
Welcome back. This is Hope Live. We are featuring Dr. O'Brien Glovo. We are discussing, or rather understanding, the redesigned new notes of the Zambian currency, the Zambian kwacha. And we've discussed quite a number of things. And as we dive into the end of this conversation, we are going to understand further some of the implications that these kwacha notes may have on the economy. Doc, what do you think are the long-term implications of redesigning the kwacha for the Zambian economy and the financial sector?
So, like I have mentioned, is that the currency is the one that is following the price levels in the economy and not the other way around. And so it means when we talk about the long-term impacts, if in the short term there is no impact, then it means it follows also that even in the long term, there is no impact in terms of what people are actually worried of. Of course, I have heard, and their concern is that won't these notes also introduce inflation? So it could be in the minds that with these higher notes, and so then the prices will go up, and then everything will go up, and so then inflation kicks in. But you see, that is a psychological issue, which is not really founded in proper economic thinking. And even in the past, when such an event has occurred, we don't see any evidence suggesting that whenever higher value notes are introduced, then there's this inflation that comes in. The same example that I gave earlier on of West Belt is that when I buy a new belt which is longer than the old one, because I think that I have gained weight, the new belt is coming in because of the change in the weight. And so by having a new belt, it does not in any way bring in the gain in weight. So a shorter or longer belt doesn't make you either thin or fatter and all that. So similarly, having a higher value notes is something that is actually inevitable because as prices are going up, the family of notes that are in circulation also have to adjust in order to match with the level or the value of transactions that people are actually having. Now, you know that there are too many functions of money. Basically, the first one is that we use money for transaction because money replaced the old barter system where we've got to exchange a bag of maize and a goat. Now, in that case, then you'll be saying, oh, a bag of maize, then is it worth half a goat or a quarter of a goat? But how do you divide that goat? It's impossible. So we have this money to basically play that role. Besides that, money is also a store of value. When you are keeping something, you do either keep some real asset, or you could actually just keep money and say, oh, this is how much value that I actually have. So usually these are higher the top notes. For example, at the moment we are having the 100 kwacha. It is meant to actually play that role. That if I want to keep some money, or if I want to take money from here and I want to travel to the village or travel to somewhere else, I will usually only carry the higher value notes, because what I'm actually doing there is I'm actually storing this value. But you know that over time, because the prices have been going up, the 100 kwacha note is itself not enough, I mean, to as a store of value. But now has found itself actually playing the other the transaction mode. That many of our transactions now are involving the 100 kwacha, because now the lower notes ones are of less value now. That is not actually usable in the economy. And so it becomes inevitable that the central bank also adjusts on the family of notes that we have in circulation. And so when you're looking at what is the long-term impact, so if in the short term we are saying it doesn't have this impact on the price level, but of course having this psychological effect that people may think